The Miami Dolphins this year, they got a huge problem. All right. I believe Miami is in a really bad situation going into this year. They just feel really weird to me because you replace Vic Fangio with Anthony Weaver, who outside of his lone season being the defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, which that season didn't go right, there's not really a lot about this dude to show that he's going to be an upgrade over Vic Fangio. And Vic Fangio's defense was the only thing that was keeping the Dolphins afloat when their offense was struggling to produce points against good opponents. The Dolphins had a 1-6 record against teams that had a record of 500 or better. They also scored 33 points per game against teams that didn't have a winning record, but yet anytime they played a playoff team, they went from averaging 33 points per game to only 12. I like Mike McDaniel as a coach, but anytime he goes up against good opponents, his play calling gets predictable. He gets one-dimensional on offense. All they do is target the middle of the field, and a lot of the teams play into stopping that. And then you look at the fact that they're not a physical football team. That's why they can't win late in December or in early January. Because when they go on the road and they have to play these cold weather games and they have to play a physical brand of football, they're unable to do so because they lack the talent up front needed. Their offensive line has been a problem for the last 3 years, and they still haven't got it right. As a matter of fact, they lost one of their starting offensive guards in free agency to the Carolina Panthers, along with Connor Williams, who was starting for them at center last year, and he tore his ACL. So your offensive line got worse, and it already was a pretty big issue for you, and you didn't improve that position outside of drafting Patrick Paul in this past year's NFL draft, who he most likely is going to end up replacing Teron Armstead because, yeah, he's one of the better offensive tackles in the league, but you only get this dude for about 8-10 games a season because for the other 7 weeks, he's out on IR injury reserve or he's injured. So your offensive tackle situation isn't good. You're not good on the interior. And the interior of your defensive line took a massive hit because you were unable to keep Christian Wilkins around. Christian Wilkins, anytime you lose a defensive tackle of his caliber, it's not just somebody who you can just gloss over with and just say, oh yeah, we're going to be able to find a replacement for him. Do you know how hard it is to find defensive tackles that are as good all around as Christian Wilkins is? Not only was he a force against the run, but he also has improved as a pass rusher every single year he's been in the league. You lose one of the best interior D linemen in the NFL. You're not going to be able to make up for that with anybody else that you have on that team. Yeah, you got Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips coming back, but how good are these guys truly going to be under Anthony Weaver? We don't know how good he is as a defensive coach. The last time he called plays in Houston, it was a complete disaster. I look at Miami's schedule this year, and I can see this team missing the playoffs and winning only 7-8 games this year. Tua Tagovailoa, for as good as Dolphins fans make him out to be, he's the best quarterback since Dan Marino. He damn sure doesn't look like it when it's time against the Philadelphia Eagles. He didn't look good. He got outplayed by Josh Allen twice. Y'all remember when the Dolphins put 70 on the Denver Broncos? They only put 20 on the Buffalo Bills the following week and the blowout loss while the Buffalo Bills put 40 on them. What did they do against the Baltimore Ravens? The Baltimore Ravens hung a 50-piece on them. What about when they played Kansas City the 2 times they did? In the regular season, Tua didn't show up in that game. In the playoffs, he just didn't look like he showed up at all. But yet, Tua Tagovailoa deserves to be getting paid $50 million a year. And yet, we're saying Trevor Lawrence doesn't deserve to get paid $50 million a year, although Trevor Lawrence has won a playoff game. And what's ironic is that you know who we get to see square off week 1? It's the battle of the overrated quarterbacks. Tua versus Trevor Lawrence. Who deserves the $50 million? That should be the game to decide it. And I got my money on Trevor Lawrence. If the Dolphins had Trevor Lawrence or even Justin Herbert, yeah, I said it. I said it, Justin Herbert. I know a lot of you Dolphins fans get really upset when people mention Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa in the same breath, but let's just be honest. Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Tua. At least Justin Herbert shows up in big games. I would love to see what Justin Herbert would be able to do with a Mike McDaniel at head coach and throwing the Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Tua is a solid quarterback, but that's all he is, a solid quarterback. Having a solid quarterback isn't going to win you a Super Bowl. And you're going to continue to get the same results that you've been getting out of Tua the last couple of years. If he stays healthy, you may win 8 to 12 games, make it to the playoffs, maybe win the playoff game, but you're not going to go any further than the divisional round. Because can Tua beat Joe on the road in the playoffs? Hell no. He could even beat Patrick Mahomes in the wildcard round, and I was betting people legit money that Miami was going to lose that game. Do you not know how many people believe Miami was going to beat Kansas City? Even in a down year, Miami couldn't even give Kansas City a competitive game. Joe Burrow went on the road and beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs in Arrowhead. Oh, my bad. I meant Burrowhead. I don't like Tua to beat Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen in the postseason either. Tua is a solid quarterback, but he's not an elite quarterback. And the Dolphins overall, they lack physicality. And when you look at Tua, he's the perfect embodiment of what the Dolphins are. A soft, unphysical football team that anytime they get matched up against a good team, they no-show. I could see this season turning out to be a disaster for Miami this year because you're about to give a lot of money to Tua Tagovailoa, and you're going to be cap-strapped to 3 guys who are going to be making the majority of the money, taking a lot of money away from what you could potentially be allocating to improving other aspects of your team, such as the D-line and the offensive line. The offensive line, I don't want to hear any excuses from you Dolphins fans saying, Tua don't got this, Tua don't got that. When you're making $50 million a year, you are expected to overcome certain limitations. When you're paid like an elite quarterback, you got to be able to play like it. Joe Burrow took the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl with the similar situation that Tua had. Great receivers, 0 offensive line. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to win a playoff game being sacked 10 plus times in a playoff matchup. Why can't Tua do the same? If Joe Burrow can do it, Tua should be able to do it if he deserves that kind of money. He's the best quarterback since Dan Marino. He should be able to look a lot better than what he's looked the last couple of years. It really disgusts me how Dolphins fans put Dan Marino and Tua in the same discussion. How disrespectful to one of the best quarterbacks of his generation. Are you kidding me? Dan Marino and Tua? Man, every day I think of the Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert debate, I always say to myself, man, like imagine if Brian Flores was actually able to draft the quarterback that he wanted. You see how good Jordan Love is. You see how good Jalen Hurts is. I'm not saying Tua is a bad quarterback. All I'm saying is that there are quarterbacks in the same draft class that have already had more success than him. Justin Herbert is about to have that success now that he has Jim Harbaugh as his head coach. I see this season turning out to be a potential disaster for Miami. Are they going to completely implode? No, but I could see them winning no more than 9-10 games at the most. Realistically, I see them as a 7-8 win team. They're not physical. They're not tough. They can't win in December and January. The real NFL season starts after Thanksgiving when it gets cold. And you got to go on the road and then beat these cold weather teams. You know, late this season, you got to play the New York Jets and the Houston Texans. I don't see the Dolphins being able to beat the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud. We're about to find a lot of reasons for why the Dolphins shouldn't be paying Tua yet. If I was the Dolphins, I wouldn't pay him to the end of this season. He still has more he has to prove. Until you win a playoff game, you don't deserve $50 million a year. Until you can show the ability to elevate a roster, you don't deserve $50 million a year neither. And you damn sure don't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Dan Marino. Some of y'all Dolphins fans need to cut it out. Ridiculous. Dan Marino and Tua Tagovailoa in the same breath is so disgusting. Just so disgusting, man. I mean, they play 8 teams with the winning record this year. Mike McDaniel, in the 2 years that he's been a head coach of the Miami Dolphins, is 5-11. Are you kidding me? I have a bad feeling about the Miami Dolphins this year. And what really stirred me the wrong way about Miami is that, the reasoning for why they got rid of Vic Fangio is because he didn't get along with the players because he was too old school, too much of a disciplinarian. And of course, Dolphins fans are going to make it seem like the dude was a terrible defensive coordinator when he wasn't. The defense ranked top 12. The defense was getting stops against Buffalo. Forced a couple of turnovers against Josh Allen in the red zone, but the offense was unable to capitalize on them, though. Same thing in the playoffs. And the offense could have did some more, and Tyreek Hill wasn't getting jammed to the ground by one of Kansas City's corners. Maybe they could have won that game. I'm just saying, I don't see it with the Miami Dolphins this year. You can call me a Dolphins hater all you want to, but y'all know the truth. Y'all know Tua doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Dan Marino, and you know that Tua isn't good enough to win you a Super Bowl. Especially with you allocating so much money to him, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill, you're never going to have an offensive line, so why continue to use it as an excuse? Why?